call the October 12th, 2015 Personnel and Finance meeting to order, please. I need a motion and support to approve the agenda as presented. We have a motion and support. All in favor indicate by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed, the same. Passes unanimously, I believe. Mr. Chief Elwell, did you vote? Okay. We are now at first round of public comment. One more time for public comment. We have no public comment. We have no public. We'll move on to item 4A, the minutes. Need a motion and support to pass the minutes as presented. Motion and support. All in favor indicate by saying aye. 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 Those opposed, same. Control my meeting. Passes unanimously. We voted, right? Okay. Passes unanimously. Item 4B, facilities. Rick.
Good morning, Mr. Chair, committee members.
Good morning, sir.
The first item you have before you is new flooring for the front of the court, first floor waiting area, and the third floor conference room.
Questions, discussion? My comment is, I don't know how you made carpet last as many years as you did.
Well,
good job. Yes. I'll give a motion and support. All in favor indicate by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed, the same. Passes unanimously. Thank you. Next topic, item C.
New vehicle for the youth center to replace the 2003 Ford van. It's incurred $6,392 in repair costs and has 134,000 miles on the odometer.
Discussion.
Have they decided on a color yet, or? No, I'm not going to call anybody up. But I do have a procedural question, though. I know where I work, I have to go, as a department head, I go through a purchase order process, and I can do purchase orders up to $500. After that, it has to go through the supervisor and the controller. Is there the same procedure here for POs or not?
There is. It's just in this instance, I was on vacation when this happened. Not that it caused it, but it's been rectified.
Very good. I'll move the request.
Support. We have a motion and support. All in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Are those opposed, the same? Passes unanimously. Point of order, Mr. Administrator. There's three actions here.
Thank you.
With that? Yes. Okay. That was transfer of funds from one account to another. Okay. Next up, we have the Health Department, 4E, concerning the animal shelter.
I think we're looking, is it the health educator position? Is that the one that's up right now?
Yes.
Okay. Good morning, Commissioners. Good to see you. This particular request is really exciting for us. We did apply for an additional $50,000 from the Department of Health and Human Services at the state to expand some of our efforts in the Teen Pregnancy Prevention Initiative. We did receive a notice of award of the funding, and so we put together a request to move our part-time health educator position that now coordinates the teen outreach program up to full-time, and this gives us the resources to do it. It does require a small cash match from the health department budget, about $6,700. We feel we have the funds to do that, and so we would appreciate your support of our request for this position.
Questions or discussion?
Just a point of clarification. So just to be clear, it doesn't create any long-term cost for us because any new employee goes into the new pension system, correct?
Correct.
So there's no long-term cost associated with it, potential anyway.
Right. With this particular position, our part-time employee is in the defined contribution.
Very good. Thank you.
Mr. Rice.
Actually, a comment. I know this program has been going on for years. tracking to see as far as how productive it is. One of the things I see here is the teen birth rate in the city of Jackson, 67.1 per 1,000, and the state of Michigan is 23.
Right.
I mean, it's just significantly higher. So I just question, how is this actually working over the years?
It's actually working pretty well. If you had a chance to see the newspaper over the weekend, they did a pretty good article about teen pregnancy reduction in general. And for us here in Jackson County, we probably have achieved about a 30% reduction over the past 10 to 15 years. And we've continued to move the rate down. We're not where we'd like to be. Obviously, we'd like the city of Jackson to be lower than the state, but the only way we're going to get there is if we continue to keep the resources there and keep moving it forward. So we've made a lot of progress over the past 10 to 15 years. Unfortunately, for cities that are of 20,000 population or higher, we currently rank 6th in the city of Jackson, and we want to push it down, and this will get us there.
I have a question or comment. With this extra money, why don't we go with 2 part-time employees? We could put more money into the education process by not having to pay health care benefits by going full-time on the part-timer we currently have.
Well, and I understand where you're coming from with that. I think that our perspective is that we gain so much more by having a full-time employee in place and being able to offer those benefits to those staff. What we typically can experience with the part-time approach is a lot of turnover, a lot of churning of staff, and we like to avoid that where possible. And I guess we felt because we had the resources here, we could make this employee full-time. That would be our preference. Part-time is always an option, but it means another person being hired. It means potentially also trying to figure out where we fit them in our organizational structure, in our building, in our working spaces. It's another computer. It's another desk. So at the end of the day, I think we really prefer to simply advance one of our employees to full-time.
I see. However, if after several years this funding goes away, you're going to have to come back to us and say we got to cut our hours or figure a way to
That is correct.
fund that, which is going to be added cost at that point in time.
You're correct about that.
Okay. Any other discussion? We have a motion and support. All in favor indicate by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed? Aye. Thank you.
Thank you.
Next up, we have item E, the animal shelter part-time veterinary technician position.
Good morning, Commissioners. Hope your weekends went well. Before you is a request to create a new part-time position at the animal shelter. Previously, up until January, February, it was covered, veterinary and technician services were covered by a contract agreement. Our vet tech at that point in time chose to pursue other avenues of employment. We did an interim situation where we brought in, our doctor brought in a couple vet tech assistants and a vet tech on a casual status situation as an interim basis. We're trying to make a more permanent situation. We've looked at the IRS work and wage rules, looked at an independent contractor 20-factor checklist. Back in January, February, it was determined that having that position as an independent contractor didn't necessarily, there was some question whether that was the correct way to go. Finance supported us in saying we probably should not have an independent contractor agreement for that particular position. And so I'm coming to the board now to try to get a position created for veterinary technician services to provide the services, to add some stability to that position, also to be able to recruit for that position. I am going to be approaching a situation where my current situation, the employees are, one's going back to school because she is in veterinary technician school, so her hours are going to necessarily have to come down. The more experienced one is also going to Genesee County to provide some time, so I'm having some difficulty here providing these services at the animal shelter. So before you, you have the staff report. I did the cost analysis, the 29-hour part-time position with an additional 572 hours of casual time at a reduced rate. Does provide full-time veterinary services, and compared to that independent contractor, it's essentially a wash cost-wise. If 29 hours plus 572 are at $13 an hour, it would come up to a $400 increase in cost. So I'm coming to you to create this position, and I'm open to questions at this point in time.
Discussion?
So Don, the math on it is 29 hours a week right now, and that equals out to what, about, what, 1,700, I think?
Well, let's see, don't have a calculator in my mind, but on an annual basis, 29 hours a week comes out to $29,964. That's at a grade 8 scale rate with the FICA, workman's compensation, and an assumed 5% defined contribution rate, contribution to if they choose to do that, with the additional 572 hours at $13 an hour of a casual status assistant. That comes out to $37,819. The previous contract at $18 an hour, full-time 40 hours a week, 2,080 hours, came to $37,440. And so the two situations are effectively equivalent.
Yeah, I was just doing the quick math on 29 hours a week is 1,508 plus the 572 gives you the 2,080, which is full-time equivalent. So,
right.
Thank you.
Now, of course, my preference is to have a full-time position because that gives me stability. I don't have as much of a potential for turnover because part-time positions tend to work in that direction. But we're going for a no-cost solution here at this point in time.
Commissioner Rice.
Actually, Don, you just answered it. You obviously figured out a way to do this, in essence, having a full-time person by using casual employee. But I understand why you'd want a full-time person, but maybe someday, right?
Someday. That casual status, assistant vet tech, more than likely is probably going to be coming from the Baker College vet tech program. It'll change over once a year more than likely because it's a 2-year program. They're getting some experience. We can pull from that program to provide those assistant duties. So that's kind of how I see that transpiring over time.
Commissioner Shotwell. Need a motion and support?
I'd move the request.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. We're presenting to you the financial statements for the 8 months ended August 2015. Our budget benchmark is 2/3 of the year, or 66.7%. Actual expenditures are a little above that at 68.5%. However, as I point out each quarter, the third quarterly transfers are recorded in August, which acts to increase the total expense. In other words, that would put us at the 75% mark. If we look at the general fund revenue expense charts, we're pretty much on target at 68.5 based on the historical trends. The general fund revenue is a little bit below that, but we recovered from the prior month. However, the revenue chart does show us that we've got past our lowest point in terms of cash flow for the year as property taxes are beginning to be received by the Treasurer's Office, the majority of which are recorded in September and beyond. If we look at the other funds of the county, again, there's a mix here of September year-ends and as well as June year-ends. And there, for example, the Department of Transportation is above the benchmark significantly and will require, this is both revenue and expense, some of the revenue is not received yet on an accrual basis. We will be presenting to you next month budget amendments, but not only for Department of Transportation, but general fund as well, as we project for through the end of the year to see the status and so forth. We have asked department heads to review their expenditures to date and propose amendments. Thank you.
Questions, discussion?
Well, no. What I was trying to point out here is that in some cases, the year-to-date numbers do not flow ratably throughout the year if an annual payment is made. In other words, annual insurance payments, annual maintenance agreement on software and so forth, would be paid. If it's paid early, then that's going to distort the flow. Our benchmark is simply, the number of months incurred throughout the year, when actual expenditures don't always reflect that.
Moving on to item 5, other business. We have the claims. Questions or motion? Motion support to pay the claims. All in favor indicate by saying aye. Aye. Passes unanimously. Okay, we have no other minutes to review, no other reporting schedule at present. Moving on to 6 would be public comment for the second round. Still no public.